and then I'll leave it up to the rest of you guys that we have a great dialogue going on and you get a lot of value out of this. So, my name is Felicia Hatcher. I'm one of the chief popsicles of Feverish Pops, and I'm the co-founder of an organization called Code Fever. And I'm excited about this panel because I don't think we talk about this topic enough. Really about building, not just building a business, but building a scalable business, and then also a fundable business, which is really important. So I see it a lot when I'm at Venture Hive and Lab Miami and Venture Women and all these organizations that are having these topics and are really focused on high growth entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. And I want to make sure we're having those same conversations around strategy here as well. So we're going to start with, I'm going to allow the panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves, and then I'm going to go ahead and get into questions. So I'll start with Derick.
Ladies first.
Oh, start with Jalea Hemmings, and then we'll work our way down.
So, thank you, Felicia. As Felicia said, my name is Jalea, and I own a company called Greenie, Tots, and we make frozen entrees for kids. So it's just pretty much taking a healthy twist on traditional kids' favorites, and they're sold in mass retail around the country.
Good morning still, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Marcel. I'm CEO of a company named Derick Pearson EVS. We manage comprehensively maintenance operations for large real estate owners throughout the state of Florida. Also, I invest in small tech companies as well.
All right, Derick Pearson, co-founder and co-owner of Feverish Pops, as well as a not-for-profit that we started called Code Fever. When we go into minority neighborhoods and we teach our youth how to program and start up businesses.
All right, so to jump right into the questions, this question is for maybe Marcel, if you can talk about the difference between an angel investor and a VC.
So generally angel investments, so there's different stages of accessing capital. Angel investors generally are going to be the people that are looking at you and they believe in you almost exclusively. You could tell them that you're going to build a spaceship and go to the moon. They probably won't ask you how, but you're their son, daughter, husband, wife, or some other family member or close friend, and they're going to back you as the entrepreneur. Once you get into venture capital, the entrepreneur is critical, and it's very important. By the way, the angel rounds are a lot smaller rounds than when you get into more sophisticated rounds of raising capital. Venture capitalists they're in the money business, essentially, and so you as the entrepreneur is still critically important to them, but they're not going to invest in you because they like you. They're going to invest in you because your skills as an entrepreneur, your dedication, your focus is good for their business at the end of the day. So I think those are the primary differences, and also venture capitalists are obviously a lot more sophisticated. So if you tell them, to use the same example, that you're going to build a rocket ship and go to the moon, they're going to be very interested in how you build that rocket ship, what's the date it's going to be finished, and exactly how are you going to get where you're going. So if you think of it kind of little leagues at the angel level, and then you're moving closer to the big leagues once you get you start engaging venture capitalists or VCs.
Okay. This question is for all three of you guys. Can you talk about how you started your company and then how you've scaled your company? You can start right here.
Okay. So I have 3 kids, and my oldest son, who's 6, is autistic. So part of autism is healthy diet and making sure you're eating well. So I was working in corporate America and being really busy, and said, how am I supposed to make these healthy meals every night? It's kind of impossible. So a lot of my friends had the same issue, and I said, we've always loved to cook, let's figure this out. So my husband and I got in the kitchen, we started making healthy meals that we knew our kids would like, and then it went from there to farmers markets, where we started trying it on just the local community, and they truly liked our meals as well. And then we said, you know what, we need to take this, because our meals are frozen, into the retail setting. So we honed in on our brand, and we got into Whole Foods. We started with 5 stores in South Florida. We got really great response, and it grew to 9. Then it grew to the entire region, and we expanded out to other regions within Whole Foods around the country. And now we're in 3 major retailers. We're in Publix, Safeway, Whole Foods, actually 4, and Giant Eagle, and then also sold online. So we're the first company in the country to make frozen meatless meals for kids. So there's nobody else doing that. But all of our meals look and taste like meat, and they're all soy-free. So that's a big thing. So I will say, in starting a business, especially when you're small, you want to look at the marketplace and say, what can we really offer that's different? Because what's going to make Publix or Safeway or Whole Foods give you a shot when you have these major corporations who come up with products every day, who pretty much pay for the shelf space? Why should I give this small business a shot? And it's usually because you came up with something unique that nobody else offers, and that's what really helped us, having a quality product being prepared and having something different on the shelf.
Go ahead.
Just go for it?
Go for it.
I asked that because I always try to condense the story and it's hard to. I went to Florida State University, and I went for my undergraduate years, and I went and pursued my graduate degree in information systems. And I was building websites, a lot of web development, a lot of database development. And at the time when I was there, I also played basketball. So we used to travel to play different schools, and we were in Atlanta, Georgia, playing Georgia Tech. And the night before the game, our coach took us out to dinner, and a Georgia Tech fan walks past my table, and with me and my teammates, he starts giving us a really hard time about how they're going to kick our butt. So he comes over and sits down, ends up being a fantastic guy, and shared with us, my roommate, who was also my teammate, and I, the fact that he just exited his maintenance business. When I say exited, he just sold his maintenance business for $6 million. So I'm 22 years old, my teammate is 23 years old, and our eyes are this big, and we couldn't even imagine how many zeros were at the end of the 6, that number. So we beat Georgia Tech, we got back to campus, and we started doing our research almost immediately. And so he was better of a player than I was. He went on to play professionally for the Atlanta Hawks and over in Treviso, Italy, and I worked the business right there in Tallahassee. I'm from Miami, wanted to come back home, and jumped in and got our first contract over the phone, jumped in a U-Haul truck, packed all my stuff in the back, and drove the 8 hours back to Miami to open up the South Florida branch. Just a couple of employees and myself. The reason I tell you that story is that's why I got engaged and I was interested in the business. It was the $6 million, to tell you the truth. What I learned was I don't know anything about maintenance. I didn't, at least. I don't like to repair things. I don't like to clean things. But I was interested in the $6 million, right?
Yeah.
So when I got here, as I mentioned, we got our first contract. I recruited the employees literally the day before the contract was set to start. And I learned a ton about how maintenance professionals were treated in a very antiquated and a very mature space. And I worked side by side with these two ladies. They spoke Spanish, I didn't. Obviously I spoke English. We communicated by sign language, literally like trying to tell each other, let each other know what was going on. And I realized at that moment that scale was all about two things. It was all about systems and it was all about people. And I set out to make sure that we built a business that had the absolutely most fantastic people in the industry. And that's what's helped me tremendously over the years. So that's the long and short of it. But if you want to scale your business, be systems oriented and be people oriented. And those two things will allow you to spend time working on your business and not in your business.
Awesome. Derick?
All right, so with us, when you're doing the manufacturing in-house, you have to make sure that, again, you have systems in place, and you also have to have the infrastructure in place. So let's just say we started feverish, and we didn't have any capital to purchase the manufacturing equipment. So what we did, we started to resell other people's product. We would resell their product, and it was trial by fire. So our first major client was this Tyco in Palm Beach. So we did that. We're going through the process, and we're like, oh man, we got this contract, but how are we going to pay for it? Well, don't worry about it. Let's get on the phone. So we get on the phone, talk to them, and then they say, okay, do you accept any deposit? Or, yes, we accept 50% deposit. So that's that first business lesson. So you get the 50% deposit, and the way we have our pricing structure is that the 50% deposit actually covers the staff, and it also covers a little bit of margin and covers the popsicles. So even, it's non-refundable, so before that, that's how you get the capital if you don't have access to the banks and so on and so forth. And we were reselling other people's products. So that way we built up enough money to purchase our own popsicle machine with another investor. And that's how we got that taken care of. So we found another way, so we need a space. We need a space to go along with the manufacturing of the popsicle. So we looked around. We don't want to go into a long-term lease. We don't have a building, and it has to be up to code in order for us to manufacture stuff. So what we do, we get a commercial kitchen. Okay, so we narrowed it down to the only venue, the only spot that we can go towards. So we have a commercial kitchen. Now you go through the checklist. Do they allow me to go in 24 hours a day? Do they have certain hours that I have to come in? Do they have any issues with my popsicle machine? Do they have enough freezer space for my popsicles? Are the people in that freezer space putting hot food in the freezer, acting like it's a blast freezer, which is going to damage your goods? So you figure out all of that goes along with it. Can that space scale with me? So we found a space, we knocked that out, and then you have to worry about the books. So now it's about, okay, working for corporate America, everything is all about the numbers. You have this database, and all the accounting software is on this database, and you're doing data pools and so on and so forth. So I realized that investors, as well as the higher ups in the company, and people who are looking at the company from the outside, they value the numbers. So we have to get our numbers in place. In order for you to scale, you always have to keep track of every last penny, and you have to document it. Because the first thing a bank is going to ask you, an investor is going to ask you, pull your financials. I need to see your financials for the last 2 years. I need to see it quarterly. I need to see how much you've grown over year, and I want all these ratios. So that was key for us to scale. So minimizing costs, making sure everything works in our favor, making sure that we're not losing any money when it comes to clients from the standpoint of them counseling on us. That's why you have to get your legal stuff on point. We had contracts that we had to put them in, and keeping track of the numbers. That's the main key. In order to scale, you have to keep track of the numbers. And then once we got in a major investor, we got almost $1 million in investment, and we built the store. But pretty much all of that $1 million went towards the store location, because once you take other people's money, you have to go into, they have a say in it now. So that was the major issue with that. If it was up to me, we would have got a major packer that would have manufactured our stuff. We would have been South Florida frozen distributors. So all the stuff would have been manufactured in wherever, in Tampa, and it would have been brought over here to Miami. It would have been staying in the freezer. Whenever we get an order, oh, you need an order? Okay, who's your distribution company? You use Warner Trucking? Okay, tell them to go to this location. I'll call the distributor. This distributor put it on a pallet for you, and it's taken care of. And that way, you're making manufacturing. But see, our investor wanted us to have a store because they had an interest in us getting into stores. So that's how you scale. For me, that's how we scale. And even if you don't have another key with the manufacturing is you have to understand what are the bottlenecks in your process of manufacturing if you're going to have the manufacturing in the house. So with us, it was the molds that go along with the popsicles. It was a popsicle machine. The popsicle machine had to have the output. So we got a popsicle machine that was making 1,500 popsicles an hour. We gradually scaled up to that. We gradually scaled up to that model from a popsicle machine that was only making 300 popsicles an hour. And when you get into these overnight orders, a lot of custom stuff in which we did, you realize that this is not going to cut it. So molds, storage, and high production machine. And I guess another way.
Go ahead. I was going to add to that too. Like when you think about scale, I think it's really important that when you're first starting off to start small. You know, like if you can, for us, we started with someone else's kitchen. We would go in at night into this pizza parlor and work all through the night manufacturing our product. And then once we kind of met that capacity there, then we started looking for other sources, and then we went into the co-packer realm. So it's better, I think, to start as small as you can instead of going into a place like a co-packer, because you're going to have issues and minimums that they require before they'll even produce your product. So even if you get an order for 10 cases or 20 cases, they're like, well, my minimum is 1,000. So you're gonna have to hold inventory, you're gonna have to, think about all those things, which are just, as you scale up, those kind of criteria come into place. Like, I'm sure, but like, even for us, if you got an order that came in today, that would be our complete focus. So when you start going into manufacturing facilities and things of that nature, they have a laundry list of clients. And and especially if you're not their top producer, they're not gonna drop their other clients to make your order. You're gonna have to fall in line. So these are a lot of things that you have to kind of consider when you're going to move up in the scale of your business. For me, it was food, but I'm sure it applies in other industries also.
So whenever somebody gives you, well, how soon can you get it done? Let me talk with my packer, let me talk with so on and so forth, and then you go and you do the research, because don't give them a number, because that's how you burn bridges. You're gonna be blacklisted, especially in the grocery industry. So it's
They actually mandate, they'll tell you they want it at a certain time, so you gotta think about that too. They're like, I want it at 14, so you have to figure that out. So you might wanna wait to go and scale to a larger facility if you're not gonna be able to meet those minimums and still try and do it as much as you can yourself before you get there.
So guys, let's talk about a little bit, some of the best advice I got when we were first starting out was figure out if you were going to keep your business and your family for generations or sell. But either way, make sure you put systems in place with the mindset that you're going to sell your business. Because that's how you can start working outside of your business and not constantly in your business. So can you guys maybe talk about your experiences with that a little bit and what systems you were putting in place?
I'll start. So there's actually an entire book written on this concept. It's called Built to Sell. And the goal is you want to work yourself out of a job, pretty much. My business, my core business is a little different. The model is obviously different than a manufacturing or distribution model. So for me, there's talent gaps from an executive leadership perspective that I'm constantly filling, that I'll never be able to step out of the business full time until I've got competent, talented, really smart executives to be able to fill that gap for me and for my business. What's going to happen is if you're building your business to sell, anyone who's coming in on the buy side, looking at you, trying to value your company, they're going to adjust your earnings based on what they know is required for your business to run without you, right? So if I'm paying myself $50,000 as a CEO of a $20 million company, they know that a real CEO makes $250,000, right, not $50,000, and they're going to adjust my earnings for what it would look like if I was no longer part of the business, because they won't be able to get someone to run the business for 50 grand. So the key is you want to either be aware of the fact that there's going to be add backs when your business is being valued, or you want to build your business to scale enough to where it's literally a turnkey solution for someone who may be looking to buy it. Now, on the other side, if it's a generational business, you still want to do the same thing. The whole premise of the book, Built to Sell, is that whether you're going to sell it or not, you should build it as if you were. Because if you're building it as you're going to sell it, it's going to be running more profitably, it's going to be running more efficiently, it's going to be running the way that it should run, as opposed to being your personal piggy bank, or as opposed to being, you walk into the office and it's like you're walking into your living room because your cousins work there, your sisters, your brothers, the whole 9 yards. And all of that obviously creates risk for any investor or anyone on the buy side. So, yeah, that's it.
Anyone else want to chime in?
I would say you have to find a better you. So similar to what he was saying, you find a better you to run the operations of your business. So I can't tell you, our key person, Joe Lowe, he's been with us since day one. And we couldn't have gotten the investments that we've gotten, we couldn't have fulfilled the orders that we've fulfilled or the clients that we've had without our partner. So it's once you find that person and you find other people like them, you can put them into place. It's like a plug and play. It's also a weeding out process. So let me go more into how we screen employees at Fever. So when we screen employees, we would come in, oh, I want to hire. Do you have an application? No, we don't have any applications. Well, I'm looking to get a job here. We hand them a popsicle, sell them this popsicle. Mm-hmm. They have to sell popsicle on the spot. If they're stuttering and they're scared or whatever, that's not the person for us. So that's how we initially got all of our employees in the store. And then begin the process of weeding them out. Okay, which ones are lazy? Looking on the camera system in the store and see which ones are sitting on the countertops or coming over here sitting on the tables. Which ones are taking fake bills because they're too lazy to put a marker line on there. Those are the people that we got out. So, and which are the ones that aren't dependable when we need them for events that come up out of the fly? Because when you're dealing with catering, you can call tomorrow. I need this. Playboy call you. Playboy call us and tell us, oh, we need 2,000 popsicles tomorrow. Okay, we're gonna charge you an arm and a leg, and we're gonna get it done though. But can the people that we have working with us reliably get to the location without us having to come and pick them up? And do they have the personality to make that customer, that client feel comfortable and come back to us? And those are the type of people that we had working for us. So we had this one young man named Norman. Norman would come in and he would hand a popsicle to the ladies and he said, "My pleasure." White, Chinese, black, whatever, they would milk. And they would always come back to the store. "Where's Norman? I want Norman to make my popsicle." They could be 90 years old, but I want Norman to make my popsicle. I love Norman. So creating that environment, creating an experience. That's my take on it.
I mean, I'll say one thing about kind of going back to family run versus deciding if you're gonna sell. I think it's something that you have to make a clear distinction on early, right? Because the first thing an investor is gonna ask you is, what's your plan? Like, what's your 3 to 5 year plan for your company? Because that's how they look at it when they look at, am I gonna put my dollars into this investment or not? So they're gonna say, do you wanna sell your business? And even for us, I'll tell you, it was first we were like, oh, we wanna keep this for a generation of generation of generation of generation. But the reality is that would be great, but that's gonna be pretty taxing, pretty tough. So, especially in the industry that we're in. So we had to we went back and forth, but by the time you sit in front of an investor, you have to be very clear, because you can't say, oh, I'm gonna sell my business in 3 to 5 years and then backtrack, right? So it's a really important thing that you have to decide, is this something that you wanna carry on forever and have it be for the next generation, or is it something that you truly want to sell in 3 to 5 years? But you do, I agree with him that you do need to still plan and treat your business like you are gonna sell it in 3 to 5 years, because it will make you be more efficient.
Because then you always want to be able to get yourself out of the business. You want people to work for you so that you can do other things. So that you can manage it from the house, you can manage it from the beach, you can do whatever. That's why you get into entrepreneurship, so that you can build up generational wealth and you can have the free time and the luxury to do whatever you want to do. That's the overall objective of it. If you have a social mission to go along with it, that's good and great. But I think also you're going to have to find out what you want to do with that business from the very beginning. Because I think the universe works like this. Until Feverish had a direct plan on how we wanted to proceed with our business, whether we wanted to sell, how we wanted to structure it, do we want to have manufacturing in the house, there was nobody coming trying to buy Feverish. There was nobody wanting to invest in Feverish. But once you get that plan down and you go full steam ahead into the direction that you want to go, then it's like, oh man, I like that brand. I like the way they have that marketing. Do you have any investors? Do you want to sell, or so on and so? Then they start finding you once you get your systems in place. So you have to figure out that direction first, because then people will realize it, because then you'll be like a fine old machine just running.
Absolutely. One last thing just to mention. So the measurement of the success of any business is, it can really be kind of wrapped up or defined in one word, and the word is cash flow. So whether you're going to sell your business or whether you're going to keep it for your children and their children, the key to determining whether it's successful or not is how well it cash flows. That's what the investor's looking for, and that's what you want for yourself and for your family. So just think in terms of, how do I maximize cash flow with my entity.
But would you say cash flow as well as the dynamics of the team and like the strength of the team as well?
Well, to me, the strength of the team is a mechanism to improve cash flow.
Right.
Yeah, and it's critical. I mean, the people piece, the culture of your business as you begin to scale is absolutely, without a doubt, one of the predominant accelerators to help get you where you're going. Like, let's just look at this room, right? We're all having a very positive team experience here. Our goal is to take this water bottle from here to there. And we're cheering each other on, and it's all exciting. And then we've got one guy or one girl who's a naysayer who says, this is a stupid game, I don't want to play this anymore. And someone else says, oh yeah, you're right, this is kind of stupid. And someone else, and then all of a sudden, the team completely disintegrates. So to develop a culture around really kind of having a collaborative mentality collectively is critical. And then now your goal as a business, whether it's a water bottle moving from here to there, or it's generating free cash flow, happens a lot more sustainably than if you've got a lot of infighting and people working against each other.
And your margins.
Yeah.
Because you can have $1 billion of cash flow, but if you're losing $100,000 on top of that, they're not gonna look at it. The first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna look at how can we make this more efficient and cut you out. Like, can we buy this for undervalued? So again, like just, he's right on point. That's what they look at. They look at cash flow, but they look at the margin. So how much of that cash flow are you bringing home, or is the business retaining? So your expenses has to be, you know, most investors look at, if you're making 10% margin, you're Warren Buffett style. 10% margin on everything, but you have companies that are venture capital, VCs, they're looking at Apple, and they're like 1,000%, and they're the richest company in the world right now, because everybody's buying an iPhone. So that's based on industry though. But again, the margins are key, because they also affect your stock price if you decide to go public and so on and so forth. So cash flow and margins.
And a lot of times these investors don't really have the passion that you have. I mean, if we're gonna just like real talks, most investors don't care what your product is, why you started. I mean, they might act like they care, but they really only care about the numbers. They want to make sure the margins make sense, or by them coming in and investing in you, that then they're going to be able to reduce your margins so that they do make sense. Like, it's not, you know, like you want to go out and be gung-ho about selling why you started, your whole passion behind it, and you need that. That's really important to your end consumer, but a lot of times these investors are just looking at numbers, and to them, all you are is a number. And the other thing I will say is that when you start the VC and the angel investor process, there's going to be a lot of people who tell you a lot, I'm interested, I so love what you're doing, it's so great, it's so fabulous, and then they'll take you all the way down, and then it turns out to be nothing. So you have to truly build a thick skin in this business when you're starting to look for investors, because as I said, it always comes down to the number, and they always yes you to death, and then act like they're interested, and very few end up flushing out at the end. So.
Does anyone watch Shark Tank? Yeah? Who? Mr. Wonderful. My favorite guy on Shark Tank. And the reason is, he doesn't sugarcoat exactly what every single shark on that panel is. They're all the same way. They're looking at a return on their investment. Not the entrepreneur, not the product, whether it's good for the environment or bad for the environment. They're all in the money business, and they're looking for a return. He's the only one that actually says that unapologetically. Would you agree?
And not until you see the term
And-
sheet.
yeah.
It's like, wait, what happened?
And
I thought you loved me.
I want my money out, and I want a return on you borrowing my money
Yeah.
and interest, equity in your company. So he's.
So anyone looking at your business, regardless of what the package is, their mentality is the mentality that you see in Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank.
And you want to stay as far away from Mr. Wonderful as possible. Because our investor was a Mr. Wonderful. So we were going through the process of like, man, we have this small business, man, we want to turn this thing up. And that, I mean, they were hounding us. They wanted to be in our business so bad. They loved the brand. They thought that they could replicate it all across the world. So they come in and they're like, man, we love this business. We're in for the long haul. And come to find out that when they present, they had a PowerPoint presentation that they presented to the board or the executive council of this major corporation. And they wouldn't let me see the PowerPoint, but they would ask me all these figures and stuff to go into the PowerPoint. We had already had the confidentiality agreement, non-compete clause, all that stuff was signed. And come to find out that one of the employees slipped up. He brought the PowerPoint, he brought the deck down. And I was like, oh, that's my deck. I took it out of his hands. And that was it. I put it in my backpack, and I put my backpack in the car, so I had the deck. And then get a phone call. Please don't tell them that you have that deck. Please don't tell them that you have that deck. You're not supposed to have that deck. You didn't get it from me. So me and Felicia get home, we were looking at the deck. They had an exit strategy between 1 to 3 years. And they were supposed to be in for the long haul. So they were trying to flip the company from the very beginning. And they were, they were coming after us like, man, we want to be partners with you. You have an amazing brand, but I just want to get you in, lock you up, and get out. So, but that's a whole different monster.
But that also takes